White here for the episode 7 of the Endpoint.ROG Academy series. We just recently got through all of the interviews, and basically today we're going to be talking about them. My decision through this process was so hard, man. Every single interview was really done well, which was surprising to me. I know it's a big thing for UK players to come on and do an interview, especially with a video camera, and be asked a sufficient amount of questions where they had to talk in depth. We had a couple of people that were nervous, we had a couple of people that were really confident, but that's just natural. It was a comfortable environment for everyone. I really enjoyed it, got to know a lot about some of the players that I've never really spoke to before, which was nice because I like to know more about UK players. And yeah, overall it was really good, man. It was enjoyable for me. I was expecting to cut down a lot more people in this stage, but I just genuinely couldn't. People were done such good interviews. It was hard for me to cut the amount that I expected he wanted. Now, this isn't going to affect the next stage. If anything, it's going to make the next stage more competitive. But it was just too hard for me to knock out some people when most interviews were just, fantastic. People were prepared, and there was nothing even to prepare on. I wasn't giving people advice, but pre-hand, I was just saying be confident. I wasn't giving them no, tips to questions. They just come on, they was confident, and they answered every question perfectly. We're going to be talking about some of the interviews today. Now, if your interview isn't on this video, don't take it to heart. As we've said before in videos, only certain people make cuts because we can only have a video so long. I don't want the video just to be piled with every single interview. Not only that, it's just, I want to get to the point of where we're going in the next stage and etc. So coming up next here in this interview, we had Sash, who is an IGL. He came on, very good at communicating. Enjoyed speaking with him. Nice tone of voice. He goes in super depth about his approach to in-game leading. I very like the fact that he run me down massive amount of like how he'd set up his team, how he likes to do things. He had certain styles of how he'd like, or methods, shall I say, of how he'd run his team. He had a funny method called like dick and ass gaming, but when he explained the concept of it, it was brilliant in my eyes. And every IGL has something different, but it's really good to have a guy come on and say I'm an IGL, and proves that he's put the time in to actually understand the role and knows what he's got to do. Really nice lad. Yeah, I really enjoyed his interview, and if someone is an IGL, they can learn from this interview as well, because the way he talks about things is very clear. It's very to the point. But yeah, the way he has an approach to the game, and the way he can have a really good chat about the game as well, I enjoy massively.
Like the style of IGLing I have results on a lot of previous work. So setting up a system in place where you go through protocols with the players, understanding what they're able to do and what they can't do within a system, really helps for T side, CT side counter execute, sort of stuff like this. And it really helps newer players learn and grasp new positions in teams. Having said that, the mid-round calling, I can play that style and have done for a few seasons, but I prefer to fall back more towards the preparation. So that's why I say I'm like born and sort of structured as an IGL. But I'm very happy to take a second calling role. If you look at Inferno, for example, there's two halves of the map. You can't have the IGL knowing what's going on. So having a second calling role, or just being a rifler that can have an influence in the play, I'm fine with that.
What do you think overall makes a team? Whether that's making a team good or just, the word team is a very strong thing. What do you think makes a team, in your opinion?
I'll say what for me makes a strong team, and I've had this experience through, building different teams. It's all about being on the same wavelength. So whenever I create a team, I make the Trello, I share the strats, I create a player page on each one. And before we even start anything, we discuss like, who are you? Why do you want this? Why are you ready to play? What are you willing to commit? And straight off the bat, you can hold people to their own standards. And it's the team all having that sort of responsibility on their own shoulders. If you don't turn up to prac or you're 2 hours late, you're wasting 4 people's time. It's 8 hours worth of time that you've wasted in team experience. And it's people understanding that and sort of all being able to put in the amount of effort that they agreed to that makes a team. You know, I've got this term that I use called diag, which is dick in ass gaming. Um, and it's basically, if you imagine yourself as like the in-game character, you need to be able to grab the person's belt in front of you. And
Mhm.
that's my idea of perfect spacing. So if you go for diag spacing, you can just go through like a duo queue pug or whatever with your number one, number two entry, and they just hard drill, you know, taking apps control on
Yeah.
Inferno. And they've got this
Yeah.
perfect diag, and they're just working on trading, communication, you know, all these kinds of things. And it's as simple as setting them in their roles and letting them get comfortable, and then building up the game and sort of filling out the strat book as time goes on and as they improve.
Next up to talk about on interviews is Lorenzo. Now, what I liked about this guy is he had a really, really good stance on media awareness and why it's good to have a brand as a player. Now, he said in his interview, you know, he mentioned Tarek, and it's kind of an example of what we're looking for in terms of the team. And I want to make it clear again because people seem to think that this team's just going to be purely around content, which is not true. You know, as we said from the very start, it's a very, very big thing for us to have someone that wants to build their brand, because that is what's molded into becoming into that pro model, path to pro model. So, you know, I'm not sure why people seem to think it's all just going to be around content. We're going to be working really hard with this team to get to the level we want to be, so players can excel and go on to different things, go on to better things maybe in the near future. But there is going to be content on the side, yeah. But that's because we're going to be building the players' brand and molding them into that, you know, overall path to pro sort of model, which comes with having a brand, having content, and get your name out there. But yeah, Lorenzo, he was talking about Tarek. He was talking about you know, how it's important to have a brand. You know, he's got such a big community behind him, and he said, like, you know, if playing doesn't work out, or he goes on a break, or he gets benched, or he needs to look for other opportunities, he's got an external income there with stream. He's got opportunities there with the stream. He can take the stream off. He can become a full-time streamer. He doesn't always have to be a pro. What I liked that he said was he wants to focus on his pro career, or you know, he's an ambition to become a pro. But he will focus on his streaming on the side, which is good. Why do you think it's important for a player to build his brand?
I think it's like, for example, someone like Tarek, I look up to a lot, who's got like a decent sized stream on the side, as well as like his pro career. I'd say I always prioritize my pro career over streaming, but it is kind of like a backup plan in a way as well. And also, like with the org I'm with right now, who isn't like a very big org, they're pretty tiny, but like them growing a little bit means I grow a little bit. I grow a little bit means they grow a little bit, because I've got like, you know, their overlays on my stream.
Yeah.
I've got like their brands on my about page or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think growing in size just gets your name more out there. You get more retweets on Twitter when you say you're looking for team. Just small things like that can help a lot in the bigger picture. And then also, like, you know, from Twitch, I can make a little bit of money. Maybe from YouTube later on, I can make a little bit of money. Just so I can get my maybe full time into CSGO someday.
Next up, we have vKEMPeN, which is Kevin, Dutch guy. I was very surprised by this guy. You know, when you're going through the application process, you know, when we started off at like 247 or whatever, it was down to what we are now. You don't forget about people, but you know, it's hard to remember exactly every single one. So when he came on, it kind of took me back to where he was, you know, in the stage 1, stage 2. Remembered who he was and, you know, his application fully. And I was really surprised by this guy. He's very well spoken. He's got very good experience. I think he's got the perfect experience right now for this sort of process. And I think he's like one of maybe 3 or 4 European players left in the process, which is amazing. Like I said, we want this roster to be a core UK roster, but I'm happy to have European players play in the roster if it happens. But yeah, I was very surprised by him. I was surprised that he applied. Like I said, I do think his experience is perfect right now for this team. But I was still surprised that he applied, because he has played at a high level. He's played with Vex Diffuse kids and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, really nice guy. I think he has a good potential of talent, a lot of talent. And his attitude for the game is really good. You know, he spoke in depth about his situation and what happened with the X Diffuse Kids guys. And it kind of reminisced with me with my chances before, when I was lacking experience, I got dropped from, you know, a team that I loved being in, and he was the same. He loved being in that team. Kind of came to an end because of his experience, and yeah, it hit home really. And the fact that he was honest about that and overall just spoke about it in depth was really impressive to me. And I think he's a really nice kid, and yeah, overall really happy that he's a part of the process. Just real quickly, in those teams that you did play, what did you find your favorite role was? Like, so you said you're a rifler, you're very adaptive. What did you fit mostly in, do you feel?
Well, when I was playing with the Active Use Kits lineup, I was meant to be like the star player type of thing. So I was just like, the point was just to like, I get the flashes and just run in to make the entries. But I was really inexperienced, so that's why I got removed from the lineup. But I learned a lot of things in the meantime.
Yeah, and I know the whole inexperienced thing. I've been there before. But you learn from it, right? And you actually gain that experience from playing with those players. Next up, we have JC Kika. This kid, even before this interview, like before my interview with him, I knew that his dad supported him because his dad was liking my. I'd have a little bit of banter with him. You know, nothing harmful, just funny little banter, winding him up. But yeah, we kind of got onto the topic about you know, how much the academy means to him and means to proving to dad and family and himself. So that meant a lot. But overall, what I loved about this interview massively, you know, when we were speaking to Ika, we spoke about his dad and his dad being supportive. And again, this hit home with me because you'll see in this interview, I was saying to him, you know, when I started out, I didn't have my parents fully on board. Now, my parents weren't, you know, they weren't horrible by any means, but they just didn't understand it, right? Because they didn't see a career in it, they didn't see money. And, you know, once I just said to them, you know, give me a chance, give me a chance, give me a chance, and just worked and worked and worked. And when I finally got that chance to prove to them, here's the money, you know, I'm traveling, you know, the UK, I'm traveling around the world, I'm living in a gaming house, they kind of realised what it meant to me and I'm following my dream. Once I showed them that, they were fully on board. Now my parents fully support me and they think it's an amazing job. So it really hit home with me to see that, you know, having Kika's dad support him this much with this process. You know, his dad looks for the videos coming out, every tweet that comes out to see if he's on the list. And it really hit home with me. And having a supportive parents is amazing to have as a UK player or any player in the world. You know, having supportive parents is a massive thing. We speak about it quite a lot. We've seen it in numerous other videos before in certain contexts. That, you know, sometimes having parents that don't believe in it can change your path and stop you getting to where you want to be. But yeah, overall, man, it's great to see that his dad supports him. It's great to see how much the academy means to him. Really enjoyed the interview with him, and yeah, overall, nice lad. And just to follow up on it, I know you said that your dad supports you in this because, like, he likes my tweets and stuff like that, which is great. I absolutely love it, and it hits home with me because, you know, when I first started playing, my parents they didn't like this. They hated it, man. You know, and they're not you know, very vicious when it comes to what I want to do, but they didn't see no hope in it, right? And so the fact that I hear your dad's like very supportive and stuff like that is absolutely top notch. So what I was going to ask is, have you found that a motivation for you as well to prove to your dad, like, even though your dad supports you, have you found it a motivation to prove to your dad that you can make something of CS?
Well, it started off there was motivation for wanting to prove him wrong, because when I first started playing, he was fine with it because he's the one that introduced me to gaming. But he was like, oh, it's just a pipe dream, you won't be able to. But now he's seen me kind of reach the higher ranks on Faceit, ESCA, top 300 in the UK on Faceit and whatever, and he sees these and he's like, oh wow, Jake can go far. And also seeing me get to this stage of the Endpoint Academy is also...
It must be a good feeling as well for you, right? To have your dad, like, you know, you're seeing yourself get through these next stages and you have your dad just like behind your side.
Cheering me on.
Yeah. And I love that. I definitely, you know, and I know it's kind of off topic, but I like to show to people, you know, there is people out there that do have, you know, fortunately parents on their side. And I'm glad that you said he wasn't always, because mine changed as well. Once I started to prove myself, my parents changed. But it's a good thing to see your dad like always behind your side.
I'm very lucky in that sense, though. I know not many people have the kind of same luxury of supportive parents, both of them really, that I do.
Next up, we have SummY. Now, his interview, again, really enjoyed it. We got really into depth on how he'd watch demos. Now, the reason I asked this with SummY is because in the past, he's been a coach for an MDL team. And we spoke about that, and we said, why did you get into it? Because sometimes you're going to go to a coach that means you don't really believe in yourself as a player. We got into this conversation and discussion for 20, 25 minutes, or 15, 20 minutes, sorry. And we're just talking in depth about his stages of where he was as a player. He was living in America, he coached an American team when he was in the UK. And in the end, what I liked about it is we got onto the fact of like comparing how he'd watched demos to when he was an AWPer, when he was a coach, and now we spoke about his role. And he really, after Epic One, he really wants to be a rifler, which I really like. So we started speaking about how he'd watch demos in them certain roles. And overall, he really impressed me because you can tell he watches demos. You can tell he's that type of player that just says he watches them but don't actually. He was talking about start round, mid round, late round, where he'd watch a player, why a player's doing a certain thing, what a player would do upon spawns. Overall, he was just talking about everything that he could watch in a demo and what he'd take. And what I liked about it is he's taking so much information from a demo, but he isn't just stockpiling information where he loses it. So like, I've always said you can never note so much on a notepad about a demo, right? But at the same time, you need to find a balance where you're noting good, consistent things. You note something that someone's only done once in a game and it's only worked once, but you're going to do that in a game. You're not going to know if it's really effective. So, you have to have a balance there of what you're noting. But what I really liked about him was he was saying, about the start round, mid round, late round, spawns, why are players doing things, what times they're throwing nades. Overall, really liked his interview because, just like I said, the way he talks about demos, you can tell he watches them, puts a lot of time into it. And yeah, the second point I wanted to make as well, linking back to his role, he mentioned after Epic One, he kind of realised to himself that, he is a much more better rifler, or he could go further as a rifler than he can as an AWPer. And that, for a player to realise, is a very big thing, especially at the stage where he's at now, because for a lot of players, they don't want to give up their role. They don't want to adapt, especially as an AWPer. People never want to drop the big green. So to see him say, I think I could go further as a rifler, take advice from his peers as well, who he played with at that LAN, shall I say. And, they said to him, you've been on fire with a rifle. And he kind of made sense to him to fully mould himself into that role and go at it. So I really like that. So yeah, and overall, really, really nice lad. Really dedicated to the game. Nice kid. And yeah, really enjoyed it. Again, just to follow up on that, you said you watch demos outside of when you're not even in the team and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's key things that you look for when you watch demos? Like so I want you to answer this in two phases. So what do you, one, look for yourself as a player? And two, when you're in a team and you watch demos, what do you look? Because obviously you've coached and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So for myself personally, what I look in a demo is basically my role on the team. So for me, a couple of seasons ago, as I was AWPing, I would look at basically professional players, so such as your big names, Device, etc. Even to your sort of MDL out in NA, a couple of my own friends, AWPers, and I look at basically how they play a situation. So whether that be at the start of the round, if they got the spawn, what picks they go for, but also look at how the enemy, if I'm in a team, how the enemy team that I'm going to be playing against, how their AWPer moves around the map, so I can counter their AWPer. Come advanced season, I played season 36, I believe. My role was a rifle, so I was on T side on majority of maps. I was sort of lurking, slash, I had my set util or whatever. But I would look around the map to see what kind of set plays they would do. So if they're down a man advantage, are they most likely going to push B and get that information, whether that be whatever it may be? So yeah, that's what I do. I just look at tendencies on how a team plays or how a certain player plays if I'm going against that player. And then in a team demo, I would basically look for, again, the tendencies. So what a team likes to do, if they're heavy mid, if they're heavy long, if this is a default set nades that they normally do every single round. But also the way that they take the map. If they're a man advantage, if they're a man down, what are they going to do as a reaction play? So that's what I look at. I look at the sort of fine detail, not the, this guy's always flashing out long. and he's going to be lurking or whatever. Everyone should see that from a demo regardless.
Yeah.
It's what they do when they're down, or what they do if they like to fake or whatever. Like the more in-depth detail. Does that make
Next up, we have Bish. This interview took me by surprise. You know, his accent, I love it. Yeah, with Bish, his passion is through the roof. I can tell that he loves this game, man. Absolutely lives for this game. We was talking about, you know, when he used to live previously in his old scene, and said, you know, he's not washed up, but there's more opportunities when you come to Europe, right? So he moved over to the UK for the opportunity to play in the UK, not in the UK, but obviously he's playing in the UK. But he wants to play at European level, European standard. He wants to grind for FPLC, FPL, etc. That sort of route, because he's part, you know, in the old team where he's from, you can't actually do that properly. You can only get to a certain level and it becomes sort of dried up, and then you have to sort of go down the team route, and then the team route there isn't a wide margin or a lot of paths to go down, is what I'm trying to say. So what I loved about him is the dedication to move over to the UK to play in European standards, European level, to improve as a player. People might laugh at that, but that sort of dedication is how a player gets to the next level. Simple as that. But yeah, really nice lad. Really liked his slap and punch sort of celebration thing, when, you know, if you win a round. Fucking love that. I think it's great. Yeah, overall nice lad, Bish. Really enjoyed his interview.
Team. Now, I think the word team is a very strong word, right? So what do you think in your eyes makes a good team?
You know, you win a round, I want to see a fucking slap and punch. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how teams, they just, you know, they give like a little fist bump or something. Like
Yeah.
in Australia on the streets, like we're doing a fucking slap and we're doing a punch. And
Yeah.
like that's a fucking team right there, in my opinion.
What ambitions do you have as a CS player?
I want to go all the way to the top.
Yep.
Day by day, step by step. Like in the most recent Endpoint Academy video, like you've got Crucial talking, and he's saying that he'll give like some one-on-one advice, and that'd be unbelievable. Like,
yep, the integration between the main team and the academy team is something that's going to be major, right? The help that I'm going to receive from, you know, peers like Ross and you know, Max as well. Like, you know, I've got that initial experience when it comes to coaching teams, but I've never got to the flights that they've got to, right? So, you know, having that integration with them is going to be absolutely amazing, especially for players like yourself and anyone else. You know, having that bit of help from people like Crucial, you know, an absolutely amazing author. I totally agree. It's going to be such a big thing. And that's what I think people need to realize. It's such a big opportunity. You know, forget just being coached by me, being under the Endpoint brand, being helped, and, you know, not I wouldn't say 24/7, like, you know, monitor by the main team, because they've got their own stuff to focus on, but having that guidance when it's needed, right, by them is such a crucial thing, right? But yeah, totally agree.
Next up, we have Dexie. Now, me and Dexie's interview, the reason I love this interview as well was because overall, just throughout the interview, like, you could just get a glance of what his attitude's like, right? So I've played with Joe before in, like, you know, Pargs numerous times, and you know, I've seen him at LANs play. He's been around forever. You know, he's played in loyal rosters like with B Magic and stuff like that, and he was always a pain to beat when he played in there. He always used to play really well. But yeah, just like overall, I know him as a person, but say for example, I didn't know Joe, I could glance his attitude just from that 15-minute interview or 20-minute interview. His attitude just shines when he's in that you know, interview sort of process, and the way he talks about, you know, the unluckiness that he's had from being loyal to teams and players quitting here, or a player going off here, the roster folding. I can see it. The UK scene's hard to make a team. It's hard to grow within a certain roster without it dying within so many months or even weeks. So I get his point, but his attitude around still wanting to get to that level, still wanting to play in a team environment, still to have that fun, was really enjoyable for me to see, especially after his previous unluckiness with past teams.
Question 2: how would you best describe yourself as a player and the role that you play?
Well, obviously, I play as an AWPer. I feel like I'm quite an impactful player myself. I'm looking a lot of the times to get the opening edge and battle back when our team need either opening picks or refrags. I'm very active on the map. I like to keep moving. I like to keep the enemy guessing. I think as an AWPer, myself, it's better to keep that weapon, you know, moving, keeping it mobile. Don't become predictable. Don't, you know, get flashed and smoked off. It's a lot better to know when to lock down parts of the map, but also keep the enemy guessing. So I'd say, yeah, very active, quite an aggressive AWPer, but can obviously do both.
What's key things that you look out in the differences between when you're watching an AWP demo? So I want to hear both. Like, what's key things you look out when you're watching AWP demos for yourself, and what's key things you look out when you're watching rifle demos as well?
A lot of the time, I've been trying to focus on the actual why behind AWPers are peaking angles, and a lot of the time you'll see it's to either isolate an angle to keep a teammate that's a bit further pushed up safer from, you know, getting caught out by an aggressive push or a flank, or obviously it's good to learn tips and tricks from demos and understand certain angles that you have an advantage in peaking. But I try to understand a lot of the time how the team are playing together, why you'll have an AWP on a certain angle and a rifler here, and vice versa, and watching how they trade as enemies kind of push in, how they adjust on their positioning to keep the setup as strong as it can be.
Yeah, definitely. Overall, really enjoyed this stage. Like I said at the start, I think it was really fun to get to know people more on a personal level. You know, in these interviews, you might not see it in this episode. We spoke in depth about, you know, people's outside lives and what their family think about the game and them playing. You know, it didn't hit me, but like, you understand people more on a personal level. You want to support them more. You know, you have more respect for them. And like, you know, I even gave them words of advice at the end of the interview, and I hope they, you know, took that sort of on board. I really enjoyed it, man. I think everyone else did. Overall, really nice stage to do, to get to know people more in the community. And as long, I know it took quite a bit of time, but overall enjoyed it. And yeah, we move. So essentially, from the next stage now, we've knocked down to 30 players. And we're going to be sectioning these 30 players into five players into separate teams. So, you know, five players into one team, another team until we make 30. You know, 30 teams of five, not 30 teams of five, obviously, 5 teams of 30. And then we're going to do sort of like a tournament series base where these 5 players that have been sectioned into teams will play in a tournament series where it's going to be streamed, it's going to be watched by me. We're also going to potentially have other peers in there. Maybe we're going to have, you know, some of the main team people watch, maybe have Ross come in and watch. Not 100% on that yet, but we will figure that out and let you know. But yeah, overall, it's going to be a really cool thing. It's going to be streamed. Every game is going to be streamed. And the way it's going to develop is I can actually start scoring players now on a basis of, you know, how comfortable they are in the role that they've told me in this interview, how comfortable they are using utility in close rounds, you know, how good their positioning is, how good their trading is, teamwork is, their communication is, all this kind of stuff. Everything that you can think possible into a player and a team environment is going to be scored upon in a score sheet. And then that way we're going to then go from 30 and we're going to go down to 10. So it's like a big jump, man, now. We're going to go from 30 to 10. Like, it's the big jump from here. From this stage now, it's going to be crazy. Like, it's going to be so tough now for me to get from 30 to 10. But this is why it's coming to the stages of where people get to the chance to play, to prove themselves on a bigger scale of what they can do and what they can bring to the table. There's a lot of skilled players in this process, I think. And I think there's a lot of players that could prove themselves to a lot of people that will be watching. The whole base of this stage isn't about winning the tournament. You know, if the team wins the tournament, it doesn't mean they're gonna get in the team. That's not how it works. I mean, of course, a winning mentality is prioritized. If you're trying to win every game as a player, and it's in a good way, in a good atmosphere, and you're just overall trying really hard to win every game, that mentality is key. But obviously, you know, if you win the tournament, it doesn't mean you're going to get into the team. Yeah, as for the players that made it through to this stage, congratulations if you're in the sheet. You will be contacted soon about obviously this next stage, because we want to get it done and we want to get through it. We want to have a schedule where it's good so it doesn't affect players in teams and stuff like that. It's probably going to be on a weekend, this tournament, but we're going to make sure it's right and it doesn't affect any player and any teams at that sort of level where it mucks around with their schedule. I don't want this to affect you know, the lower end of the scene. Now, people know in other teams, they know that their players are still in this process, because that's something I wanted them to be open and honest about from the very get-go. But I'm still going to try my best with the Endpoint staff,
to make sure that this doesn't affect their schedule, and we're going to do it on a date where it's perfect for everyone and get through it. You know, maybe a 2-day sort of tournament on the week. I'm not 100% on it, but we're going to make sure it's right. With the next stage, the way the rosters are going to be chosen, I'm going to basically be making the rosters. I'm going to be making them as fair as possible. I'm going to hand select players into 5s with roles accordingly. So all of the interviews that I've had, they've told me the role that they really want to, determine themselves into in this process and what they wanted to develop as. I've asked them if they're potentially, if I see them more of this sort of role, will they be happy to dive into that sort of thing? They said they were happy with it. So what I'm going to do is hand select players into according roles. So each team is as fair as possible. Now, I can't, with the players left in the process, I can't make it as even as you think. Obviously, that's just common sense. But again, winning this and winning, the whole thing isn't prioritized. So like whatever team you're in shouldn't be an issue. It's down to how you play as a person, how you communicate, how well you try and win with that team that you're given. The other point I wanted to make as well, if people are looking at the list and they're questioning, why is this player not made it through and blah, and why he was in this stage and why is he not in the next stage? Now, I just wanted to talk about it. Some players dropped out. They realized one, university could be, too much for them, and outside life could be too much. Some people have realized that they've got a potential offer, or they got a potential offer to play at a good level. So they've took that, and I've got nothing against it. I'm happy for them. It's your choice. I do think this is a good opportunity for the UK players. I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. It doesn't come around often. But it's totally their choice. I don't want this to affect other parts of the team. I'm not saying it's this or nothing, So a lot of players have messaged me and they said good luck, and I wish them luck as well. Some players obviously stayed loyal to their teams, and they think their teams are going to do well next season, so they decided to drop out that way as well. So that's why the list might seem off, and you might seem like, oh, why is this guy not in there? And I thought he was going to make it all the way or something. That's the reason. I'm not going to mention names, but yeah, they've gone and done their own thing, and I respect them for that. I wish them luck, and I thought I'd just make that clear for you guys. But yeah, really looking forward to the next stage. As I said, congratulations to the guys that made it through to this stage. I'll be in touch with you very soon, and there'll be more news on it in the future.